Brody, sick vandalism. That is a deliberate mutilation of a public service message. Now, I want those little paint-happy bastards caught and hung up by their Buster Brown.
It's officially been 50 years since the first summer blockbuster, Steven Spielberg's Jaws, hit the big screen.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons on them. You're gonna need a bigger boat, right?
Based on a 1974 novel by Peter Benchley about a giant great white shark preying on a Long Island resort, Richard Zanuck and David Brown at Universal Pictures instantly scooped up the film rights as soon as they had read the novel. Shopping around for directors, they thought about John Sturges, who had made The Old Man and the Sea, and then Dick Richards, who they ended up dropping because he wouldn't stop describing the shark as a whale. A young Steven Spielberg, who had just had his first theatrical debut, The Sugarland Express, produced by Zanuck and Brown, was lobbying for a chance to direct Jaws. 26 years old, he compared Jaws to his 1971 road action thriller TV movie, Duel.
Busted loose. Pull it back.
Then he got cold feet and almost left Universal for Fox's Lucky Lady, but Universal vetoed that and said, "Oh no, you're working on the shark picture." He was afraid that he'd be the Truckin' Sharks director. Part of the deal to get the novel rights was promising Peter Benchley the chance to write the first screenplay draft. After 3 drafts, Spielberg was still unhappy with Benchley's work, having his own ideas about wanting to clean up and consolidate the first 2 acts, but keep the last act, the shark hunt, as it was in the novel. Benchley said that his contribution was largely the mechanics of the whole thing, the storyline, and the ocean stuff. After looking around for new writers, the Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Howard Sackler did an unaccredited draft, as well as Carl Gottlieb, who was writing for The Odd Couple, Spielberg's friend who also wanted to play Harry Meadows. Gottlieb ended up rewriting the whole screenplay over 9 weeks, the same 9 weeks as the beginning of principal photography. He finished pages right before they shot them.
It's lunchtime, and the afternoon dialogue is being doctored a little.
No, because he'll be so energetic. He'll be screaming and yelling, "It's a great white, it's a great white, I knew it all along." And there's only room in there for one quick line, expository line about the mate. The mate. Where's
the mate is dead, we'll have to
Where's
tow
the
the boat
body?
back.
Why is the boat torn to pieces? Because it's a great white shark.
Universal obviously wanted big stars, but Spielberg didn't want that. He wanted the shark to be the biggest star. Most of the minor roles were played by actual people who lived around Martha's Vineyard. Spielberg hired the head of Universal, Sid Sheinberg's wife, Lorraine Gary, to play Ellen Brody, and Murray Hamilton to play the mayor. It was tough casting Brody. Robert Duvall was approached, but he wanted to play Quint. Charlton Heston was interested, but he was way too big of a star. Roy Scheider actually overheard Spielberg talking about the project at a party and started lobbying for the role.
I had seen Roy in The French Connection, and I met him at a party at Andrea Eastman's house, and I was sitting here talking to him saying, "I can't find this leading man, you know. Here I am saying I can't find this guy to play Brody. It's terrible." I looked at all these actors, and most of them want $1 million. We're not going to spend $1 million, and the other ones aren't interesting enough. What am I going to do? And I suddenly said, "Hey, what are you doing this summer?" it was really that fast, you know. And it just dawned on me that Roy would be right for the part, and of course Roy, who has written before, he and I together worked on his character, so there was a lot of freedom.
The list of options to play Hooper was really long. We will go through it on air. But it was George Lucas, who had worked with Richard Dreyfuss on American Graffiti, who got Spielberg to cast him.
And they came together during the actual shooting, because on Jaws, Richard pretty much designed his own character of Matt Hooper. That wasn't in the book, and that wasn't in the first couple screenplays. And when Richard had a good idea, if it conformed to my overview of the whole movie, I said, "Great, that's a great idea, we'll use it." And I pretty much, sapped from Richard. I said, "I want Richard Dreyfuss to play Matt Hooper. I don't want you playing a dilettante, I want the dilettante in you." And that's why I cast Rick. I kind of typecast Rick for the part of the ichthyologist.
Quint could have been Lee Marvin or Sterling Hayden, but since Zanuck and Brown had just finished The Sting, they recommended Robert Shaw. Jaws was filmed on Martha's Vineyard. Although this isn't the case now, they picked it at the time because it was lower middle class enough to be economically wiped out by a shark ruining a season.
Look, we depend on the summer people here for our very lives.
You are not going
and
to have
if
a
you
summer
close those
unless you
beaches,
deal
we're
with this
finished.
problem. We're not only going to have to close the beach, we're going to have to hire somebody to kill the shark. I mean, we're going to have to tell the Coast Guard.
Mr. Vaughn,
we're going
you
to
have to
get shark
contact the
repellent.
Shark
We're going to have to put
Research
extra
Panel.
deputies on because
You
every
have to
nut
ring
in the
this
world is going to come in
entire
here.
I don't think one of you are familiar with our problems.
The ocean bottom around Martha's Vineyard also never dropped below 35 feet for 12 miles offshore, which made it much easier to operate the mechanical sharks without losing them. Starting a trend that would go on throughout Spielberg's career, new equipment was developed just for shooting, like an underwater camera box and new rigs that kept the camera stable regardless of tide. The giant mechanical sharks, including the main one, Bruce, were incredibly hard to work with and kept breaking down in the ocean water. It was the first major motion picture to be shot in the ocean, and technical difficulties arose from the start. Spielberg refused to shoot in a lake or a tank. On top of malfunctioning sharks, cameras got wet, frames fractured, and the Orca at one point, the ship, started sinking with the actors on it. Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss also began feuding, and Shaw would disappear on drinking binges to Canada. Meanwhile, they had Ron and Valerie Taylor capturing shark footage in South Australia. And one day, a great white actually attacked their caged boat, leading to that great cage attack footage at the end. There was also a real shark, the tiger shark, which a crew member caught in Florida and flew back to Martha's Vineyard, but nobody thought about how fast sharks decay, and they had a rotted shark they had to keep applying makeup to. The film ended up 100 days over schedule, which was unheard of, and $5 million over budget. So a 59-day shoot became 159, and a $4 million film became $9 million. An unprecedented $1.8 million advertising campaign followed, and this is what really made it a summer blockbuster. 24 30-second TV ads played on prime time, and up until that point, the most merchandise of any film. Posters, the novel special edition, soundtrack album, plastic tumblers, t-shirts, towels, games, all kinds of toys. And the John Williams theme played everywhere. Jaws opened with a $7 million weekend in 400 theaters. Adjusted for inflation, it's the 7th highest grossing film of all time. Until Star Wars: A New Hope, it was the highest grossing film of all time. Although it's most identified with Watergate and the corruption scandals of the 1970s, you have to be struck with how prescient it is for every time science and policy unites today. From climate change to the environmental fights to really any regulation, from pesticides to cigarettes to the FDA. With the scientist Matt Hooper acting as a Cassandra, warning about how bad things can quickly get, the mayor holding back any solution for fear of economic damage, and in the law, in Officer Brody hesitating in the middle, with the public unwilling to really have a vocal opinion until they actually see the shark in action.
Why? Go further out! What for? Will you go to the end of the pulpit, please? What? Will you please go to the end of the pulpit? What for? I need to have something in the foreground to give it some scale. Foreground my ass!